Hello and welcome back to another Q&A here on StephenVlog, this time for the month of June.
I didn't know what month it was.
It's alright, it's fine. The May vlogs are finishing up. We've just finished our Arizona vacation. Hopefully you enjoyed it. They were really hard to make. And now we are going into this Q&A. There's really good questions. I'm sad that we had to cut a few because we always try to get about 10. And this is such a good assortment of questions and such a variety of subjects and topics. Like, these are just really great questions. As an aside, there was a lot of questions asked that we have definitely answered before. So if you were not aware, there's a link in the description box where you can check on previously asked questions. Do check on those, because there's a lot of people asking questions about things that, like, if you typed it in the little thing, it will show you what our answers are. And they'll help you. Because some people, like, want advice on stuff, and I'm like, there's advice. It's in the description box. So we're going to get started here. First question is from AntiHeroSora. And AntiHeroSora asks, do you ever consider color correcting the vlogs, or do you think the camera's auto white balance is fine? So my answer for this question is basically, how much time do I have? That's my biggest answer. Generally, the answer to that question is not much. I generally don't have a lot of time. And I feel like I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I like to do things really well, but I also have lived under this schedule that I've lived under for, you know, so many years that I understand that I have to keep moving. And color correction is something that it's a weird one, because, like, you can put, like, a few minutes into it. You can really go in there and do all sorts of stuff and spend, you know, an hour on a vlog. And it's largely not worth it. The color correction, honestly, for the most part, I think is pretty good. Outside color correction for almost any consumer level camera is perfect. I mean, it knows, oh, hey, sunshine, we got it, and there's where to go on the Kelvin scale, and white balance looks good. Inside, it can be a little weird. There's definitely times on the vlog where I'm editing stuff and, like, everything gets, like, really yellow, and it might take 10 seconds for the camera to, like, kind of adjust and make it more normal skin tones. And I see that kind of thing, but, like, to take the time to actually do that, like, those minutes and things, they add up, so I usually don't. Now, that being said, on the recent vacation vlogs, I took a lot of additional time to go through and do color correction. And color correction, even though it has the word color in it, very rarely, at least for what I use it for, has anything to do with color. A lot of times it's exposure. It's making sure that your blacks and whites and mids are all set in the correct places to make sure that the picture appears very vivid. Adding a little saturation, maybe adjusting color, but usually not. So color correction's kind of a bit of a misnomer. So yeah, to answer that question, generally, it's fine anyway, but even if it wasn't super fine, like, I don't have enough time to mess with it. The only times I can think of on normal vlogs that I've messed with it is when it's been bad. Like, if something happens and the camera just is like, I'm like, what were you thinking, camera? Then I'll adjust it, but usually not. Next question is from Matthew Parvin. What caused your love for Carl Sagan? And I'm just going to kind of put Carl Sagan and, like, astronomy together. For those who are not aware, both Mao and myself are into astronomy. It's been a huge interest of mine since college. Yeah. When did you first have an interest in astronomy? High school? Because didn't you take a high school astronomy class?
I did, but before that, Carly got a telescope for Christmas one year.
About, like, what year?
Oh gosh,
like, how old were you? Like, middle?
5th grade, 6th grade?
Oh, okay, so elementary.
And, like, before that, we went to the planetarium in Chicago.
Okay. And
I must have been 2nd grade or 3rd grade then.
Okay.
And then there was a planetarium at the college nearby in Appleton at UW-Fox Valley. And we would go and see planetarium shows there too. Oh.
So you've had at least a passing interest for a long time. For me personally, my interest in astronomy started in college because I took a college class, and to be to be completely honest, I took the college class as an elective, as an easy elective. I took it because I think during that quarter I was having, I knew I was going to be having like a more difficult quarter from the film side, and I wanted to make it easier on myself. So I was like, I'll just take an easy elective. And I think Taylor was the one who had taken that class before with the same professor and said, you know, it's really easy. You know, it's just you go to class and you that's pretty much all you have to do. So that's what I did, and then I ended up very much falling in love with astronomy and finding it like super, super interesting. And I think it was from the class, because I think the class, like the professor made references to Carl Sagan, or, you know, I'm sure we studied Carl Sagan's work, and then also identifying him as like a popularizer of science and astronomy made me interested in actually checking out his stuff. So I watched the original Cosmos. It's like a 13-episode show from the 80s, and it's fantastic. Admittedly, the first episode's a little slow. I always got to warn people about that, because
it is.
If you're going to watch it, it's fantastic and I highly recommend it. But the first episode's really slow. After that, it does pick up. They also redid it like 2 or 3 years ago with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And honestly, that one's, I hate to admit it, but that one's probably a lot better. But they're both worth watching.
See, I hadn't heard about Sagan before, even though I took astronomy classes.
Yeah?
And then I took one freshman year in college, and one of the days I think the professor was just like, yeah, we're gonna watch this.
And you watched an episode of Cosmos?
Mm-hmm. The original. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I was already really interested in astronomy, but once I watched Cosmos, I was just like...
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things like, oh my god. So whenever, actually, if you go back a few years and you watch the vlog, when they had just announced that they were bringing back Cosmos and Tyson was going to host it, like, I'm so excited. And I get so excited, like, every week for the 13 weeks or whatever that it runs, because it was just a revitalization of, you know, my favorite show. Cosmos was my favorite show. It's just such a fantastic educational piece. And if you haven't seen either of those shows, the old Cosmos or the new Cosmos, like, you have to watch them. I'm pretty sure they're available for free or like ad viewed on Hulu.
They had been on Netflix for a while.
I think they're on Hulu like for free.
Okay.
I think Hulu had like hulu.com/cosmos for a while. So find a way to watch them, because they're really, really spectacular. And I liked Carl Sagan enough to name our cat Sagan. Next question is from Jam Meepler. On a recent vlog, May 17th, you can see a journey painting in one scene. What's the story behind that? So Mal...
Well, in that vlog, you were like, look at Mal's Tetris painting. And I always hang my paintings on the wall after I paint them, because I do isolation coats and varnishes and they have to hang. I don't want them touching anything because the sides dry too.
Yeah.
And the Tetris painting, because it was vertical, had to be in a certain spot. And next to it is this. And
this painting.
That painting is actually from a MalMakes video that never happened.
It's fun.
That was the journey painting before the journey painting.
Yeah, this painting was Mal's third painting for MalMakes. She did the Wind Waker Outside Island.
Yes, and then the Pikmin.
The Pikmin repair type bolt.
And then I did that.
And then this. And
obviously it was 18 by 24.
Yeah, it was a lot bigger.
It came out this way.
Yeah, it was obviously a full-size painting. And we actually have a picture, I'll put it on screen, of what that picture was. It was a scene from Journey, where you talk to whatever the
guardian
thing, and there's like glyphs and stuff on the wall. And basically what happened... I
mean, it was... I had painted it, and I was mostly happy with it, but I was trying to do some fog or mist, and it wasn't really working. And I should have stopped, and I didn't stop, and then I ruined it.
Mal ruined the painting, which is understandable, because Mal was, you know, just starting out painting. A lot of people, I think, that aren't super familiar with MalMakes might assume that you've just been painting forever, you know?
No.
And that's not the case. Like, when Mal started MalMakes, that was largely the beginning of your painting career.
Yeah.
You had painted a little bit for a few projects in college beforehand, but MalMakes was really like, well, I guess I'm going to paint now. So it was kind of a big jump for you.
I was a lot more comfortable with drawing with chalk pastel. And I kind of wanted to do chalk pastel with MalMakes, but it's not permanent enough to mail and stuff.
Acrylics are easier to work with. Now, I do have to say that I take some responsibility for this painting being, you know, essentially destroyed, and the painting was destroyed. Mal just really liked.
I did really good with this. I saved it.
Yeah, the reason Mal saved this is because at the time this was one of the best things Mal had ever painted,
and that's not the part that got ruined.
So Mal really wanted to keep this kind of as a memento, and she took apart the canvas and restretched it onto a new board. And it's funny to her now because, like, she's went on to do things that are just so much better than this, but at the time this was a really big deal for her, so she saved it. But I do have to take at least some responsibility for the destruction of that painting, and the reason is I advise Mal, at least partially, on her paintings. I
always need some feedback and
like
as it's going on.
I help you brainstorm ideas for either what games to do or scenes from games, and how you could sometimes even like composition and how you could do it. And then through the process, a lot of times Mal will be like, hey, you know, I've done this, I want you to come look at it, what do you think? And that, I think that's overall a positive thing, but also I have a tendency to push Mal. And at the beginning of MalMakes, I pushed Mal pretty hard, considering that she couldn't do certain things yet.
Yeah.
And I have to take responsibility for that painting getting destroyed, because I was the one that was like, you should try this, you know, you should try this. And sometimes Mal would be very hesitant to ideas. And, you know, I knew in the back of my mind, like, if Mal can push this, it's going to make this look better or whatever. But then there's occasions where, technique-wise, Mal did not know how to do the fog.
Yeah.
And it's been something that has taken multiple paintings and multiple tries with different things to find something that works correctly. And at that time when she started to do it, it was one of those things like, oh god, I think this is ruined. And then trying to fix it and realize, like, no, it's really ruined. That was not a good night.
No.
That was that was a really bad night. That was a night of like, oh crap, Mal ruined the painting. She's still trying to meet this 2-week deadline, and she's really pissed at me because I'm the one that made the suggestion.
I wasn't that mad at you.
You were pretty mad. However, I do have to say that when you compare what that image was to what you ended up painting, it came out a lot better.
Yeah, it did.
I liked your Journey painting 10 times more than what you had been painting for Journey. So, you know, out of this dead carcass bloomed a beautiful butterfly, but it was still, you know, it was still rough. Now, fortunately, that's been the only painting that's ever been destroyed on MalMakes. Since then, there's been struggles, for sure, and there's been a lot of times, if you watch the full versions, there's been repaints, where, you know, you'll do a section and be like, nope, and then do it again, and sometimes be like, nope. But eventually, you know, you get it. So that's been the only full painting that's, you know, completely destroyed, but there's always that worry.
Yeah. And every time I do kind of like a fog or a mist, I test it first.
Mal is so...
because I'm so paranoid about it.
You were so scared. Was it the Fallout one?
Yes.
Fallout, you were super scared because the Fallout painting is beautiful, and it's so detailed, and Mal needed to add like the fog and stuff, and she was just worried to death, you know. But even going forward, there's always going to be new techniques and new things that you try that you know, you're scared, because there is no time for practice. Like, whenever you watch Mal bring a painting to the channel, it's not that she's been in her test lab, you know, for the past week, like, ooh, this will look good or this will look good. Like, it's her first time doing this painting, and it's either going to turn out or it's not, and you've hit a lot of home runs, but you never really know. Anyway, that's a good question, so I'm glad that we could explain that in a little more detail. Next question is from blrasmu. Mal, how do you compare MalMakes to your old job, and what are the pros and cons of each?
it's hard to compare.
Because they feel so different?
Yeah.
Like, what are the similarities?
I make art.
And you teach?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's hard to think about that sometimes because you're sitting in a room by yourself and not in a room with children, but you are actively teaching people.
I mean, I really like being able to make my own schedule now because I am not a morning person. Stephen laughs because he knows how hard it is for me to get out of bed.
Yeah.
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 And sometimes I like to be able to stay up and, like, get stuff done. And then if I have a work schedule, like, I have to be up at 6 a.m. And that if I've stayed up, that's really hard.
I mean, this sort of work for both you and myself, the by far the most positive thing about it is the flexible schedule.
Yeah.
You do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
It would be different if we were like Twitch streamers.
Yeah.
Because then you would have a certain schedule to an extent, but when you're doing...
I mean, I still work a lot.
Oh, no, I'm not saying about the hours.
I'm just saying that...
You arguably now, I would say, probably work more. You probably put in more hours now than you did when you were teaching.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you don't have to drive.
Uh-huh. I mean, I had a long drive for work.
Yeah. So there was a lot of miles going on the car and then also money for gas. Mm-hmm. What would you say as far as like pros and cons go? I mean,
there's something about teaching where like a student will have a moment and just be kind of blown away by their own skill they've picked up. Mm-hmm. And I was always very proud of that. Like if my students did something I was very impressed by, and principals walking by down the hall, I'd call them in and be like, hey, please come see what these kids are doing. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And like there's something about that was always really nice and still really nice. It's just... I don't get that immediate...
Yeah, well, I was going to say that you still get that to an extent. Yeah,
when people tweet me things, or I get emails sometimes, or people tag me in Instagram pictures of art they've done. I love seeing what people have done. And,
like, Mal really... I want to stress that Mal really, really appreciates that. Like, if you have watched Mal's videos and you've learned something, like, let her know. I'll speak for her here. Like, let her know. Or if, like, you followed along in an intro to painting video and you've recreated it, like, tweet it at Mal. She wants to see these things, and it's because there's this nourishing spirit in you, because you are a teacher at heart, and, you know, the internet now is essentially your students, and it's a very different scenario, because when you're in a classroom and someone does good, you can be like, wow, you did it, you know, that's awesome, that's really great. And on the internet, it's so different because you're behind a screen. So Mal craves that. Mal wants to know that, you know, she is still teaching. So if you learn something, or if you're doing something, share it with her, because she really, really gets a lot out of that.
Yeah, I do. I
know you do. I understand. The jobs are in some ways very different, but in some ways there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Some similarities. Anyway, the next question is from SmallTownGamer. What sports did you play when you were young? And SmallTownGamer asked this specifically because they saw a photo of me where I was in like a basketball jersey as a kid, and they were like, you know, you obviously played sports. What did you play, and then also what pushed you away from sports? So first, did you play sports?
I played soccer in first grade.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work. I remember running around the field a lot. And I remember hating it.
Did you do any sports past that?
No.
Really? So first grade?
Yeah.
So you're looking at like well over 20 years since you've done any sports-related activity.
I thought about joining the tennis team because they started to try and get an interest for it in 7th grade, because they wanted to start an 8th grade team, and then that would kind of help the high school team get more members. And... What?
Sorry, I just have a question. Because you were talking about tennis.
Yeah.
When was it that you were really into that tennis anime?
Oh, that was because of Stephanie, and she was playing tennis on the high school team.
Was that like? But that was after.
Yeah, that was high school.
Part of me was like, I wonder if Mal was interested in tennis because of that tennis anime.
They had a meeting during lunch one day, and I was like, tennis seems like a pretty cool sport where you don't have to run around a soccer field a lot. And I went to the informational meeting about it, and I was like, And I knew I wouldn't be able to get rides back and forth to school at that time, so I was like, meh, so I decided not to do it.
Yeah, I just, for those who are not aware, Mal, at one point, was into this tennis anime, and there's pictures of her, like, at an anime convention.
ASEN.
Dressed as, doing cosplay of someone. I don't know anything about the show.
Stephanie played tennis in high school, and she heard that anime was going to be translated and released in the US, and so we watched it because she played tennis.
Sure. And
then the group of us were like, let's, you know, make outfits and go down to ASEN and cosplay.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. As for me, when I was really young, for like 3 or 4 years, I played t-ball. So I don't know what age you play t-ball, but that was when I played t-ball. I was like probably 4.
Yeah.
You know, 4, maybe like 4, 5, and 6. I played t-ball or something like that. Maybe not 3 years. Maybe it was longer or shorter. I don't know. I played t-ball. After that, if you want to count it as a sport, I played, or I did karate.
You played karate.
I played karate real good. I did taekwondo for 5 or 6 years, and I got up to whatever it was, the belt before black. Brown. And there's brown, but then there's like degrees of brown, and so you have to like become brown, like first degree, second degree, third degree, or maybe it works in reverse, one of those. But I was like right before black. But then I pursued gymnastics out of nowhere for a year. And then,
I did gymnastics for a year.
Okay, so that's a sport. And then there was 1 year. And I'm having trouble placing where this was, but I think it was after gymnastics. There was 1 year where I played basketball, and I don't know how old I was. I think I was probably 12. I want to say I was about 12 years old, which seems right. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know when I did taekwondo. Like, I did taekwondo.
As soon as this video comes out, you're going to get a call from your mom who's going to be like, Steven, don't you remember?
I know. My memory's terrible. But, like, I did taekwondo for, like, 5 years. And I'm like, where did that fit? Where was that? I don't know.
Maybe you did some overlap.
Maybe I did. Maybe there was some overlap there and I don't remember.
Or maybe you're 10 years older than you think.
Dun, dun, dun. But I did do basketball for the rec center. For a year, and it's so interesting that your question originally had asked, you know, what pushed you away, because I felt literally pushed away from it. I only really did basketball because I was tall, if that makes any sense. Like, growing up, and I don't fault my parents for this, because I did have a legit interest in basketball, but I feel like that interest was built upon the fact I was tall. You know, anytime I met anyone growing up, anyone, my entire life, my entire childhood.
Even nowadays, people ask you.
Yeah, well, nowadays they ask me, you must have played ball in school. When I was growing up, they were like, he's going to be a ball player. I heard that, like, multiple times a week. We go to Walmart and someone would say, oh, he's tall. How old is he? Oh, he's only that old. You're going to be a ball player. So, like, you hear this, and it affects you. Like, it's a very subconscious thing. And, like, my room as a kid was decked out in basketball gear, like, to the point you don't understand. Like, my bedspread had all the basketball teams. I had a lamp with a lampshade that was basketball team. I had a Charlotte Hornets trash can. I had pictures of, like, Shaquille O'Neal and Dennis Rodman and Michael Jordan hanging on my walls. And I do have, I can't say I do still have, because I don't really watch it, but at the time, like, I did watch basketball. Growing up, it was awesome because I was in the generation when Michael Jordan was still playing for the Bulls. There was many nights where me and my dad sat and watched basketball games, and we loved the Bulls, and we always were super excited to watch, you know, Jordan and Pippen and Rodman play. It was super cool growing up. But a lot of that, I'm sure, had to do with the fact that it was subconsciously being put on me, like, you know, you're going to be a ball player. So eventually, at some point, I played basketball. And it was awful. I didn't get past the ball once. The coach was very nice, but there was a few kids on the team who were hella ball hogs, and they would take the ball and that was that. And I remember I got past the ball once in one of the games, and I wasn't even like open or available, so I had to like pass it back. And it wasn't even that I was like particularly bad at basketball. I wasn't, but I was never really given a chance. I almost wonder if there's some alternate universe where I was past the ball frequently and I was like, basketball's cool, and now I'm playing in the NBA. That said, I like this life and this timeline better, but it's just something to consider.
You took swim lessons, right?
That is...
I think you've told that story on the Q&A.
I'm not going to get into that because we'll be here all night, but yes, I
did too.
Yeah, I have bad experiences.
Oh, I had good experiences.
I developed a lifelong
fear of water.
Hydrophobia. It's awful. Yeah. If people are curious about that, I can't remember if I've talked about that on a Q&A, but if I haven't, feel free to ask it for next month. It will take far too long to explain. So yeah, after the basketball, I didn't play sports.
You tried to, or someone tried to get you in high school.
In high school, they asked me to play basketball all the time.
What about baseball? I thought...
No, there was one time...
Or soccer.
Yes, there was one time, I will mention this quickly, there was one time when we were going into 8th grade, Austin played soccer all his life. Like every year, Austin has played soccer. Like, it was crazy. He played soccer forever. And in 8th grade, he was going to play soccer for the school, and said, you know, why don't you come out? It'd be cool. We'll get to hang out and you know, do this thing. Because I enjoyed playing soccer for fun a little bit. For PE or, you know, recess. And I was like, all right. So we went out there, and I realized that the fun part of soccer was immediately sucked out, because what happened is you have to run drills, man. You gotta like run up and down the field and do jumping jacks.
And you gotta like go around the cones and... Yeah. And
all of a sudden I'm like, oh God. I realized that the part of soccer that I enjoyed was kicking the ball down the field. I don't like any of this other stuff, so I had went out for the initial practice thing, and that was it. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done. And then I immediately became a hermit and spent most of my high school days programming RPG Maker games. And I turned out okay. So that was a really long diversion. This Q&A is going to be long, but that's all right. They've been pretty long recently, and I think we've had a lot of fun on Q&As, so I don't have any problem with that. The next question is from Sarah Barker. What kind of car do you have, and why did you pick it specifically? So we used to have a Kia.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly get that one out of the way.
It was a Kia Spectra.
And you got that when?
2004.
And we got rid of it in 2012?
Yes.
It didn't have AC.
Oh, no.
That's the easiest way to explain that.
The car was repossessed by the bank from whoever had it before me, and I had no say in it. My mom found the car and went and took care of everything and was like, here, this loan, sign it, you have to pay it. Here's your car. And that was kind of my experience with the only car I've ever had. Which
is admittedly a pretty poor experience.
Yeah. And
you're getting this car and you are paying for it. Sign this paper.
And it was a stick shift, which I was fine with because I thought that was awesome, and it is awesome. It didn't have AC.
Strong opinions.
It didn't have cruise control. It had manual locks, manual windows. The radio didn't really work all the time.
It was a cheaper automobile.
And then at some point the radio just straight up died because if the power got disconnected, it had a security code because someone might want to break in and steal that garbage radio. That was stock on a Kia Spectra.
But you got that car in high school.
Yeah.
And you had it throughout your life, and you had it in Wisconsin where AC was not necessarily needed.
I didn't really need AC ever. And okay, it was hot in the summer, but not bad.
And then whenever we got married in 2011, I flew up to Wisconsin, and you drove the car back down, and that's all on the vlog.
Yeah.
If anyone is truly interested, you can go back to the 2011 vlogs. A few months before we get married, I fly to Wisconsin, and Mal drives the car to South Carolina. And you didn't, I don't think you even had the car here too many months before it was like, you know, we got rid of it.
No, I had it in Colombia for a year. We sold it before we moved back here.
Okay, yeah, that's right. You had
But when it was really hot, I drove your vehicle.
Yeah. Well, for a while, I was looking for work, and that was the issue. Was like, well, we're going to have 2 cars, and then, you know, I turned into YouTube man, so I didn't have to go anywhere.
But at the end of that summer, after in Colombia, we went and we drove it to CarMax because I knew it wasn't worth anything.
Yep.
And it was having a lot of problems anyway. Yeah,
and we sold it. So now that we've told you about a car that we haven't owned in 5 years, we'll tell you about the car that you're actually interested in. We have a 2004 Ford Escape, and it's bronze, I guess. Some sort of bronze color. Gold bronze, tan something. It is a car. I received a car from my grandmother for graduation from high school, and just to say it, you know, fairly nicely, it was an old person's car. It was a white Buick or Oldsmobile or something, and the car was like driving a boat. It was like just huge car, and it was you know, it was not a car that I wanted. And I went off to college right after, you know, receiving that car. And I want to clarify that, you know, I appreciate the car from my grandmother, absolutely. It was just not a car that I specifically wanted to own. So I went off to college, freshman year. Didn't take the car because there was a bus system.
Parking in Savannah is not fun.
Parking sucks. It turns out Alex had a car, so we just rode around with him. But in sophomore year, after having been in Savannah for a year, I realized that having a car would actually be pretty advantageous because you had to, the bus system sucked, and you had to walk everywhere if you're not taking the bus, and it's big. If you're not familiar with Savannah College of Art and Design, the campus is over the entire city. It's not that they have a campus. They just bought buildings in Savannah as they became available, so walking anywhere takes forever. So I decided I wanted to get a vehicle. So my parents actually were the ones that were here, and I told them, I said, you know, I don't really want that car, but if you can find something that you think I would like, you know, just, we'll do that. So I left it in their very capable hands. They actually
traded in the white car, and
yeah, they found a vehicle that they thought I'd like, and they, you know, they just basically emailed me pictures. And I remember I had to teach them how to take the photos and email them to me. But they emailed me the pictures, and I was like, yeah, that, you know, that looks good. You know, cool, whatever. It's just something that wouldn't be like a boat driving. And it was this...
I mean, the old car, you said that, you know, your head hit the top of it.
Yeah, there were other reasons that the car wouldn't work. Yeah. I literally... I actually appreciate you mentioning that, because that was one of the big factors, is that I didn't fit in the car. Because my legs are so long. So one of the things that my parents decided that they were going to look for is to try and find an SUV. That's why I have an SUV. And a Ford Escape on the SUV scale is pretty small.
It's real small.
But at least it has leg room for me to fit. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. So they found the car, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. So they traded it in, and we got the Ford Escape, and then I think I came home for a break and got the car and then took it back after that. And I had it for like the last quarter of sophomore year.
I remember that. And
then I had it in junior and senior year, and I've had that car since whenever that was. 2009? 2009.
Yeah.
Is when I got that car. So I have had that car that we drive everywhere for 8 years now. And it had a previous owner before me, obviously. It's a 2004, so it's been around a while. And it's had some car problems. Anyone that's watched the vlog will know there's a part of our honeymoon where we get stranded at a CC's Pizza because the car broke down. But overall, it's been a good vehicle, and it's getting ever so close to 200,000 miles, and it's still running. And I know one day we'll have to get a new car, but I'm not going to get a new car until that thing is run into the ground, basically. When that thing doesn't turn on and the car just falls apart, then I'll let it die.
That's kind of what happened to the Kia, though.
Yeah.
We turned it on and a belt snapped, and there was a belt underneath the car.
Yeah, I remember we had to fix a thing, and it was like $500, and then we sold the car for $1,000, and I was like, well, we didn't make much off of that. But yeah, well, that's the car we have, and that's the car we're going to have until, like I said, it's dead. Once again, a reminder that this is a really long Q&A. Next question is from lovelyardie. What are the pros and cons of marrying at a young age? lovelyardie was talking about how she recently got engaged, and she said that she was very young, about the age that we were. I think she's 21 or 22 or something. And that was, we got engaged actually younger, and we got married. You say you're not, but I mean, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. Was I 21 when I proposed? What year was that? 2010? Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Okay, I was 21 when I proposed. All right. So I was 21 when I proposed, and then I was 22 when I got married, and you're a year older, so 22 and 23 for you. And her question was, you know, what are the pros and cons of marrying at a young age? The pro is, this is a dumb answer, but it's, you know, the mathematical one. You have the chance of spending more years with someone.
I was gonna say you can share expenses.
Oh, you know, from being
2 incomes into one house.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty obvious, I think, one. But no, that's a good one, especially these days with the cost. With wages being low and the cost of living being high,
and rent
and
or
rent
mortgage
and everything, like, I really don't know how people who are single do it. Like, it's difficult. It is very difficult. If you are single, or, you know, just you have a 1-income household or renting or whatever, like, props to you, because it is difficult. And obviously it changes based on where you live and, you know, what the cost of living is in various places. But, like, it's hard, and that is true. If you do marry, you get together and you have shared income, and it makes it a lot.
Yeah.
Makes the financial burden a lot more bearable, especially if you're younger, because you're still, at least potentially, dealing with student loans. Like, I mean, we've been married for a while. We're still dealing with student loans, but that's something that, you know, can obviously be very helpful. But I mean. I don't know, that there's a lot of people that look down on marrying young, and I get it. I do get it, because a lot of people will say, you know, you need to spend a certain amount of time with someone before you get married, and I understand and agree with that to, like, an extent. But you also have to understand that the amount of time that you need to spend with someone before you get married, or before you feel comfortable, or before it's going to be, you know, right, like, that is different for everyone. You know, there are people that I know that have been dating longer than Mal and I have been together, and they are still dating. And, like, it's not like, I mean, people will talk, of course, they'll be like, why aren't they married yet? But, like, at the end of the day, like, it's none of your business, and it can be fine for, you know, those people. And some people get married very quickly. And, like, I don't think I personally would want to have been married very, very quickly. I feel like we waited, like, a pretty appropriate time. But that's not to say that that's not right for, you know, that person. And there's been people that got married very quickly and have, you know, 30+ year marriages, and they're very happy. So I don't know. It's hard to discuss pros and cons of something like that. Yeah. Because it's really, it's really not different from having been older. And there will be people that want to tell you that it is, and they're wrong. Like, they just are. There are people who say you should wait until you're a little bit older. Like, okay, but why? What is it that you're waiting on?
I mean, there's a few minor things that may change on the situation. Like, if we had been older and more established, I'm sure we could have had a bigger wedding.
Sure. And you're thinking rational, and that's good.
Yeah. Or, well, there was another one, and you made me forget.
Sorry. Yeah, if you think of it, you just blurt it out. I mean, as far as, like, you know, the cons of it, one thing I would at least mention is that people are always changing, and, you know, who you are when you're 18 is so different from the person you are when you're 25. And it may not seem like that, and certainly different people change different amounts. Some people change a lot. Some people don't change that much, but you will change. And if you're getting married when you're 21, 22, Like, you are not the person you are going to be in just a few years. Even if it changes a little bit, you and your spouse are not the same people. And I think that's something to consider. I mean, when you are getting older, you know, when you're, by the time you're late 20s, 30, you're probably the person you're going to be the rest of your life, which is super exciting. Because I'm a fun goofball, and I hope that never changes. But when you are younger, that is something to think about. Like, you're not going to be the exact same person, and even if you feel that you are, you don't know that your spouse is. There could be something that changes. I will say that the most important thing to me, regardless of what age you get married, is that you feel like you know the person you're with. That's the only thing that really matters. It doesn't matter what age you get married. It doesn't matter any of those other trivial things that people will say, well, did you do this? What matters is that you know the person you're with, and you need to spend an adequate amount of time, whatever that is for you, to know that. You need to be able to communicate with them openly and freely about anything. Nothing should ever be off the table in your relationship, and you should be, you know, comfortable around them. There should never, you know, you should never feel uncomfortable, you know, based on a certain situation or around certain people or talking about a certain thing. That should never, you know, come up. And, you know, fight. Have a fight. Have arguments. Have things like that to let you know, for one, what that person is like, but then also that you can get through them.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that you could ever do would be to get married without ever having had at least a somewhat sizable argument, or knowing like what the person normally did when they were argumentative. Like that, I think that would be a big culture shock type thing that would be very bad if you didn't experience that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why it's good to at least wait a little bit, because for a while you're in like a puppy dog stage where, you know, everything they do is perfect.
Tutor-pated.
Yeah, like everything you do is perfect and you're wonderful, but eventually that fades off and you get back into reality, and that is probably where you want to look to.
I do want to say that it's interesting looking back on that vlog for us, or pictures, or other people's pictures, and you look at pictures and like when I look back at us, I don't feel like we were kids.
Sure.
But like I look at some other people and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys have grown up.
Yeah. I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying. The takeaway from all this, once again, I've spent so much time on all these questions. The takeaway from this is the age itself doesn't matter. Just, you know, make sure you know the person you're with. It doesn't matter if you're getting married when you're 21 or 41. And as one final note, I'll throw this out there for anyone who feels that like forever alone feeling. Because one of the things I said at the beginning was that you have more time, essentially, with someone whenever you get married younger. Love is a very unique thing, a very unique feeling, and when you truly experience it, it is, you know, magical. But it also, it does not matter what the past has been. And what I mean by that is, if you don't find someone until you're 30, that's okay. And the feelings that you're going to have with that person are going to make, like, the last 10 years where you were thinking, oh, I'll never find someone, they're going to go out the window. You're not going to worry about that, because you're going to be so happy that you found someone who gets you, who you truly feel connected with, who you feel is, like, legitimately your absolute best friend in the entire world, that's not going to matter. So if you're thinking, like, you know, I've been looking for someone, I need to get someone because I want to be able to spend time with them, don't worry about that. Because when you truly find them, they're going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't cry. Next question is from Jesse Ryerson, who asks, you both very rarely use profanity. Why? And this is a question we've kind of answered before, but when I checked the questions list, we last answered it 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, I guess we could do an updated one of that. So we do both very rarely use profanity, I would say in the videos. And I'll clarify a little bit. When I was growing up, I grew up in a household where there was basically no profanity. That is why I grew up not using profanity, and I didn't. I never used profanity because my parents never used profanity. Like, occasionally, you know, I would hear, like, jackass, but also that was always used in a tone and in a way, and also, I've said it before, but, like, they used that in Looney Tunes episodes when I was a kid. That was used in such a way that it didn't feel like profanity to me. And I use that in my videos, and it doesn't feel like profanity to me. It's just a thing you say. And I think it was because of that. Like, I grew up and I never heard it, or at least I never heard it at home, and I would hear other people say it, but it wasn't anything that made me feel like I needed to say it. And it also felt like a form of politeness, and which might be a little bit of, like, Southernism coming out, like always wanting to try and be very polite to everyone, that I just never used it. And I've jokingly said in the past that when I really started using profanity was when we got the cats, but that's actually true. Like, I've said that, but it wasn't really a joke. It was not until we got Sagan and Kepler, and they were frantic little kittens, that I started actually swearing. Before that, it would be like super rare for me to use any sort of profanity. And then after we got the cats, and they were like going up the walls, that was when I was like,
they were
okay,
going up the walls.
That's when I learned to cuss. When I saw them little critters going everywhere. But I mean, I also have this entire background of, like, never using profanity. And, you know, when the channels got started, I never used profanity on them because I didn't use it personally. And even now, the profanity that I generally use is basically around Mao. You know, it's not always directed at the cats. I love the cats, but it's at home. You know, occasionally I might use some profanity around friends, either to maybe, like, make a joke or make a point. You've
said this before to me, that there's an art to swearing.
Yeah, well, that's true. It should have power.
Yes.
You know, if you use profanity very willy-nilly, the words lose their meaning. And I think it's important to remember that. If you're someone who likes to use profanity, that's fine. But then, you know, what do you have to rely on? You start raising your voice. You know, for me, I don't have to raise my voice. If I use certain words that I never use, people pay attention quick. And it's nice to be able to do that, to employ that if you absolutely feel like you need to. But yeah, I grew up not using it, and even now it's one of those things that I pretty much only use at home, you know, in the privacy of my own home between you and me, sometimes around friends, but I still don't do a whole lot of it. Now you, I'm sure, not saying anything bad about your parents, but I'm sure you grew up in a different situation where it was not like a squeaky clean when I was upbringing.
Young, it was squeaky clean. But
well, like, that's good.
This sticks out in my memory particularly, is when South Park first aired.
Okay.
And I remember being at my dad's house, so it was his weekend, and we had gone over to one of my aunt's houses, and he was like, there's this new show out. He's hyping up South Park about how it's like Simpsons but dirty, and like he's talking to his sister about it.
Simpsons but dirty.
And I grew up watching The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. Where, like, you didn't get to watch anything like that.
Nope.
And I was like, I was paying attention because I was like, oh, my dad's like, it's a cartoon, you know, but it's more adult than The Simpsons, and he's not talking to me. But I was like paying attention because I was like, oh, a cartoon that's like The Simpsons but better. And I was like,
more adult.
This is something I gotta watch. So, my dad had cable, my mom didn't, and another weekend when I was at my dad's, I knew when South Park was on. Mm-hmm. So I had a TV in my room and I watched it, and he found out. And then we had a conversation about how those sorts of things you don't talk about in public. Like the conversations they have in the show, like you don't just go around in public saying the things they say on the show.
Well, he did good. I mean, he was explaining to you, you know, that certain forms of media should not be imitated.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what he did. And it was great. And
especially because he
didn't want me going to school and acting like a character on South Park.
I was going to say, especially because the pilot episode particularly involves...
it does.
anal probing, among other things. So it would be a good thing to not try and replicate.
But I mean, after that, like, it wasn't a question of if I could watch it or not. It was just like, yeah, you know, Mallory's mature enough to watch it.
Yeah, it was very different in my house. And I don't want to say, like, my parents were, like, super squeaky clean angels or whatever, but, like, profanity was not the tools that they employed. Because they were basically the same way. They grew up in their households, and their parents didn't use profanity. And I guess that's why, you know, coming from both of that into, you know, our house, they never really used any profanity growing up, so I never used it either. But that's why. That was the question, you know, why don't you ever use it? I mean, I don't have a history with it, basically. And, you know, it is something that we'll use occasionally. And it's so funny. It's so funny, like...
A Stephen and Friends just came out.
Yeah, like, if there is an instance in which I use a profane word on the channel, like, it's the subject of discussion in the comments. Like, for some people, it'll be like the first time they've ever heard me use, you know, a profanity, and they'll be like, has he ever said this word before? And then someone's like, he said it 3 other times, and these are the videos, and it's like, it's just really comical to me. But
I do want to say, like, part of my not swearing, like, I have a weird switch I can flip, like, professional and not professional, like, work and off camera. Yeah. I think it's part of, like, when I was a teacher, like...
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, watching my language at work, and then, like, coming home and not having to worry about it.
And, I mean, as far as not swearing in videos now, for me, like, I don't have a problem using profanity. I could use it, but it's the same thing. Like, I also have a switch, and it's real easy for me to just not turn it on. Yeah. You know, it's like... And we don't ever actively try to make the channels family friendly, and I would even say that they're not really family friendly. Like, we may not use profanity, but we'll discuss, like, different things that are, you know, more crude jokes or things like that. And God knows we play games that are not kid friendly, but sometimes we get labeled family friendly because we don't use profanity, which is a little odd to me. But whatever. If we can be more accessible to more people, then that's fine. I know that there's a lot of parents that have contacted us and said, you know, we actually appreciate you keeping it clean because we let, you know, our kids watch because we know it's going to be fine. And I like that, actually. I don't think that that's, you know, a negative. You know, if we can be, you know, more inviting or more inclusive, then I think it's a good thing. Once again, I've said it like 6 times already.
This is a long Q&A.
This is the longest Q&A ever. There's such a good variety of questions that you can't breeze through any of these. They're all very intricate. Next question is from Mike Young, or Mitch Young. I butchered that name. Mitch Young 120. Do you have any guilty pleasure purchases? And I'll be honest. Their example was, like, I think shopping for, like, shoes, or I think they said, like, board games or something like that. For us, I think I can speak for both of us. I think it's eating out.
Yeah.
That's the guilty pleasure purchase. Although, in our defense, a lot of times when we choose to eat out, it's more about convenience. Yeah. There is such a strain on us for time that if we're going to be going out anyway, if we're going to go out and do shopping or whatever, we almost always eat lunch out. And the reason is the mere idea of having to come back here and then start cooking and not use that time to just work is like, it's the worst feeling in the world. So a lot of times you may see us eat out on the vlog, and it's not even that we eat out at, like, you know, particularly nice places. A lot of times it's like, we got Bojangles, we got Chick-fil-A. God knows how many times you've had that Chick-fil-A salad.
Or McAllister's. Or
McAllister's. These are, you know, cheap, quick places. And we try to make good eating decisions there for the most part. You eat a lot of salads, I eat a lot of whatever I want. But I think that's it for us, is the guiltiness is not really so much eating out as it is the convenience. It's, you know, I I want to be able to eat something quick and get back to work. And I hope that it's not like that forever, to be honest. Like, we've been so busy for so long, and I keep seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and sometimes I get a little closer, and sometimes I fall a little back, but I know I'm going to get there at some point where we can relax a little bit more, and we can spend time making, you know, dinner, but then also nicer dinners. I want to be able to do that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we will look for convenience, so...
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
My thing I like to buy that I shouldn't buy.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to speak for you, by the way, but...
I mean, you're right. Going out to eat is one of them, but, like, if I see a dress I like, or leggings, because, like, if I'm at home and not going out, I like to wear leggings because it's comfortable. I want more leggings.
Yeah.
I was just showing Steven some the other day that I really like black leggings because... they're not crazy, but on the side it had like this Egyptian cat. I was like, Steven, look at these, and you were like, I don't care. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like, food was my go-to one because I think it made the most sense for us, but I don't know, could you answer that for me? Is there anything that I have that I'm like, oh, I want this thing? Because I mean, there's things you get that I'm like, do you really need to get that?
But almost everything I buy is for the channels, it's for the business. Like, there are times where I will get something that I don't need. Yeah. But it ends up being used for the vlog. Yeah. Like, years ago when I bought a GoPro, like, I don't need a GoPro. But if I own a GoPro, I will find ways to use it. And I remember we went to LA and we like took it in the pool, and since then we've had really cool footage with it. Yeah. And that's an example of something, but I don't do that very often. I don't buy GoPros as often as you buy leggings. Leggings are a lot cheaper. I know. But it still stands to reason. Anyway, the last question of this incredibly long Q&A is from Sia Forful. Did you find it weird watching yourself under anesthesia, and did you say anything that surprised you? I would say that it wasn't weird watching myself under anesthesia. The weird part, like, I didn't mind being filmed. For full clarification, you told me to film. I told Mal to film. Before he went and left, and he said, you better film me. Because the first time I had anesthesia was a year or so ago after the cysto, and, you know, Mal only caught some of that on camera, but Mal was like, you were so loopy. Oh my god, like, you just kept talking about how great the nurse was and how she brought you apple juice, and how you never get apple juice, and you only get apple juice at hotels. And I'm like, really? So I said all this because it was so funny. So I knew whenever I went in for the ER, I said, they're gonna put me under. I said, I'm gonna give you this camera and you film me, because if it was as funny as you say it was, I want to be able to see it. So I didn't mind being filmed. That was my idea. I wanted to make sure that we actually got it this time. But it was weird to watch something that you have no recollection of. That's weird. I've never been drunk, but I presume that it would be the same thing as filming someone who's really, really drunk and is blackout drunk, like not remembering what's going on. And I've never had really an experience like that. Now, admittedly, my memory is terrible, and that's a funny thing to say, but I also legitimately mean that. Like, there is something wrong with my memory, and I've been growing increasingly concerned about it, because I don't remember things that I should really, really be remembering from like a few years ago. Not to worry anyone, but it's a thing that I'm slightly worried about. So my memory's bad as it is, but whenever you're watching video playback of you sitting in this hospital bed, it's so strange. Like, you have a connection, because, like, I remember some of it, yeah, like later on, but not at the beginning when I'm wheeled in. Like, I don't remember that, but you almost start to immediately create false memories when you watch this footage. The first time you see the footage, it's new to you, you know? But then after you've watched it through, your brain is like, well, I guess I remember that. But if you play it back in your mind, it's in third person, you know? You don't remember sitting there and being there. You remember what the footage was. So that's weird. But as far as did I say anything that surprised me? I think I'm really funny under anesthesia. Like, I laughed at myself editing that vlog. Like,
I wasn't in the room when he edited that. I was painting, but I could hear him when I was in the studio. You were laughing. When I
finally got around to editing that, I dropped it in Final Cut and started cutting it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so funny. You know, if I ever want to pursue being like a comedian, I'm gonna have to travel around with anesthesia, and that's the way I'll have to present it. The only thing that I thought was interesting is that I complimented the
nurse again.
Mm-hmm. So at least I know that when I am out of my head, that I put a focus on being very nice and polite.
That's what I was thinking.
So I guess if I was ever drunk, that I would be a very kind drunk, which is, I guess, a good quality.
Have you met our waitress?
Yeah.
She brought me ginger ale.
She brought me root beer and it was... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the next time I'll need anesthesia. I hope it's never, because I hope I never have anything that requires that. But in the event that I do, I'll make sure that we film it again, because it was really funny.
It was funny.
And if you need anesthesia, I'll film you.
I don't think I'll react quite the same.
Everyone reacts differently, unfortunately.
I mean, I was under for my wisdom teeth, and I don't remember anyone saying I was loopy.
I was reading the comments on that vlog, and it was really interesting to see people's experiences with anesthesia. Some had similar to mine, and then others had completely different. One person had said that they became extremely violent, like wanting to know where am I, and like trying to escape and like attack people or something. And I was like, whoa, that's nuts. I'm glad that's not me. But it's interesting how it affects people differently. Anyway, so I don't know how long we've been recording. It's like, I think it's over an hour.
It's long.
I think this Q&A's been over an hour, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I know some of you guys treat it like more like a podcast. You just let the audio run, and that's cool. Whatever. I appreciate you, just watching or listening in some capacity. As always, if you have a question that you would like to ask, leave it in the comments below. Also, check that link down there to make sure that hasn't been asked before. There are some questions that we can update. There are some that you really can't. We gave our answer, and it's never going to change. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, enjoy the June vlogs as they are now being served to you. And we will see you guys next month for another Q&A. One that is hopefully not an hour long.